All right, so let's start with the big story that we are tracking on WION at this hour, and this story is coming from New Zealand, where the white supremacist terrorist who killed 51 worshippers in 2 mosques in Christchurch in New Zealand has been sentenced to a life in prison without the possibility of any parole. Now, this is the first time under the current New Zealand law that a sentence of life without the possibility of parole has been given. Brenton Tarrant, a white supremacist, the one that you're looking at on your screens, has been sentenced to spending the rest of his life for killing 51 Muslim worshippers in 2 mosques. The 29-year-old pleaded guilty to murder charges and also to committing an act of terror. Now, the plea came a year after Tarrant attacked people who were attending the Friday prayers at 2 mosques while he live-streamed the brutal killings on Facebook. The court heard 3 days of emotional victim impact statements, during which more than 90 of those who were either bereaved or wounded in the attacks addressed the court. Now, Abdulaziz Wahab Zada, who chased Tarrant outside the Linwood Mosque, was also amongst the witnesses who was questioned by the court.
You should thank God on that day I didn't catch you. That time will be different story. This government will save a lot of money, and this brother insists that the ones that lost their loved one, they wouldn't go through that. You should thank Allah for I didn't catch you on that day. You never forget these 2 highs you ran from. Assalamu alaikum.
Now, New Zealand's Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern has welcomed the court verdict. She said that the mosque gunman deserves a lifetime of complete and utter silence.
The trauma of March 15 is not easily healed. But today, I hope, is the last, where we have any cause to hear or utter the name of the terrorist behind it. His deserves to be a lifetime of complete and utter silence.
All right, now to give us more insights in terms of what's been happening with this case in New Zealand, we're joined in by Thomas Manch, who's joining us live from Wellington in New Zealand. Now, Thomas, let me begin by asking you this. This was a very important verdict that was given out by the court in the case of the shootings that took place in Christchurch last year, where this individual, this white supremacist terrorist, has now been sentenced to a life in prison without the possibility of parole. Give us a sense as to what is happening there.
Yes, hello. So it's, it's a very monumentous day, really. This is a crime which has left an exceptional mark on New Zealand, and there has been a lot of anticipation for this week's sentencing hearings. I think there's a lot of relief in the community, broadly in New Zealand, and particularly with the victims. We've heard it from them that they were seeking the harshest sentence possible. It's quite remarkable that this is the sentence has been laid down. It's only been available, this sentence, for about a decade. It was somewhat controversial when it came into place, but as we've seen here, Justice Cameron Mander, the judge, has been very powerful. He's given a very powerful sentencing statement, and effectively the government will serve the rest of his natural life behind barbed wire in New Zealand.
All right, and is this now the end of the legal case, or is there any other judicial remedy that the convict in this case can actually go in for a court of appeal? Is that a possibility?
It is a possibility. He has 20 days to lodge an appeal. He can appeal the sentence because he pled guilty. He can't necessarily appeal the conviction unless he decides that he was improperly guided by legal advice. But he could appeal the sentence. I think that's probably unlikely at this stage. He chose not to speak at the hearing. He gave no opposition to the sentence and put no evidence forward for any mitigating factors, which would indicate that he does not feel that the sentence could have been in any way reduced, as the judge certainly did not feel that way. So there's that 20-day period for an appeal possibility. The one remaining legal matter is there is a Royal Commission of Inquiry into the attacks. It won't make a criminal ruling or any such ruling on the gunman himself, but it will determine what the New Zealand government and its operations and services should have known or done prior to the attack.
Right, and also this in many ways has been described as the worst terror attack on New Zealand soil. It was live streamed by this individual on Facebook. A lot of people around the world, in fact, saw as to how the attack, in fact, unfolded live as he went about on that shooting spree. But with this sentence, does this now bring a sense of closure for the victims and also for the families of those people who lost their lives in this attack in Christchurch?
I believe it does. We've seen a lot of jubilation down in Christchurch today. The victims have left the courtroom to a crowd of citizens of Christchurch who have been singing songs and celebrating with the victims. Right. And a lot of them are saying, you know, we have reached a sense of closure. I mean, I don't think there is any true sense of justice here, but there is a partial sense.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed, Thomas Manch, for joining us from Wellington and getting us all those updates. This, of course, is a story that we will continue to track.